Day 0. The first signs. It begins on a day like any other. Jubal, a mechanic by trade, wakes to the sound of rain hitting the roof of his modest home perched on the hills of Seattle. He's lived here for years, alone by choice, far from the noise of the city below. He doesn't need much. A mechanic's tools, a well-stocked pantry, and a couple of old rifles passed down from his father are enough for him. He's always preferred the quiet, the solitude. This morning, however, something feels off. The usual hum of city life is missing. As he flips through his messages and news feeds over a cup of bitter coffee, the first hint of what's coming catches his attention. Unexplained virus spreads rapidly in Seattle, flashes across his screen. The initial reports are vague, flu-like symptoms, fever, strange aggression, but it's a distant problem, right? Something that won't affect him. After all, he's up here in the hills, far from the mess of downtown. His phone buzzes with messages from friends. A couple of them are stockpiling supplies, but Jubal shrugs it off. By midday, the stories become more alarming. Attack at Pike Place Market, multiple casualties. Panic begins to seep into the air. It's no longer just a virus. People are turning violent, and there are murmurs of strange, unexplainable attacks. It's still far away, though, down in the urban core, and Jubal isn't the type to overreact. But as evening falls and he watches the rain-drenched city skyline from his window, the distant sirens and the glow of a fire on 3rd Avenue tell him otherwise. Something is very wrong. Day 1, the city burns. By morning, everything has changed. The streets are eerily quiet. Jubal ventures out to Ballard to grab supplies from the Fred Meyer just a few miles from his home. The roads, usually bustling with commuters, are empty. Abandoned cars line the streets, beneath their drivers nowhere to be found. At Fred Meyer, the scene is worse than he expected. People are fighting over water, canned goods, and any kind of weapon they can get their hands on. The tension is palpable, the air thick with panic. Jubal grabs what he can, non-perishables, a few medical supplies, and heads back to the hills, ignoring the crowds. The city feels like it's slipping away. The grocery store clerk's frantic face still lingers in his mind. It's already happening, man. People are changing. I don't know what's going on, but I don't think it's going to get better. By the time he gets back to his house, the city below is burning. Plumes of smoke rise from downtown Seattle, and the sound of distant screams reaches his ears, carried by the wind. He locks the door behind him, pushing furniture in front of the windows, but his mind races. What kind of virus turns people into monsters? What's really happening down there? He grabs his hunting rifle and checks the ammo. As he settles into a night of vigilance, he can't help but feel like his isolation is no longer a blessing. It's a trap. Day 2. Isolation and realization. The next morning, Jubal wakes to silence. No birds chirping, no cars in the distance, just the constant patter of rain on the roof. He can't ignore it anymore. The virus is here, and it's not just a matter of people getting sick. He watches the news on his old radio and TV, but there's nothing useful, just confusion and conflicting reports. What he does hear clearly is the military's announcement. Seattle is now a quarantine zone. Jubal looks out from his window over the trees and rooftops of the city and sees smoke rising from Pike Place Market, the Space Needle barely visible through the haze. He watches as columns of black smoke rise up, curling into the heavy clouds. It's surreal, like something out of a disaster movie, but there's no script to follow. This is real. In the afternoon, he makes his way to Capitol Hill to check on his friend Michael, an old army buddy who lives in the area. But when he drives past the I-5 overpass, he sees chaos, looting, people being dragged away, and a group of survivors huddled in a gas station, firing at something in the distance. He doesn't stick around long enough to figure out what it is. The streets are no longer safe, and he doesn't need any more confirmation. The outbreak is real. He returns home as quickly as he can, avoiding the increasingly erratic drivers and the piles of debris. The safe retreat he once felt on the hill has turned into a prison. As night falls, the sounds of the city are replaced with screams. Jubal knows the city is lost. Day 3, fortifying the home. The 3rd day is spent fortifying his home. The world outside is too dangerous. He moves heavy furniture to barricade the doors and windows. He doubles the locks, sets up crude traps in the yard, and fills his bathtub with water in case the power goes out. He tries to get in touch with anyone, but the phone lines are down. All he can do is listen to the radio. The situation in Seattle is getting worse. Zombie-like creatures are swarming the streets, and there are reports of survivors fighting for resources. The virus is mutating, turning people faster, and it's spreading throughout the entire city. Jubal spends the night on edge, hearing strange noises in the woods around his home. At first, he brushes it off, wild animals maybe. But as the hours stretch on, it becomes clear that he's not alone. He grabs his rifle, checks the perimeter again, and sets up watch for the night. Day 4, a stranger at the door. The 4th day brings a new level of tension. Around midday, Jubal hears the unmistakable sound of a vehicle coming up the hill. His first instinct is to run for cover, but then he remembers the truck, a battered old Dodge Ram with tinted windows. He hasn't seen any cars in the area for hours, and the driver might be a survivor. He cautiously approaches the vehicle, his hand tight on his rifle. The driver's side door opens, and a woman steps out. She's dirty, bruised, and shaking, carrying a duffel bag of supplies. Her name is Sarah, and she's been surviving downtown Seattle, watching as her group was slaughtered by the infected. She's barely made it to the hills, and she's desperate for help. Jubal, hesitant but empathetic, takes her in for the night. She's the first person he's seen in days. They sit in the dimly lit basement, the only place safe from prying eyes. As Sarah tells him her story, of the horrors she's witnessed of the fall of Seattle, Jubal realizes something. He's not as prepared as he thought. There are too many of them now. Too many zombies. Too many dangers. As the night stretches on, the sound of moans reaches their ears. Jubal's stomach churns. They're not alone, and the silence outside is more unnerving than ever. Day 5, the beginning of the end. The 5th day is consumed with fear. Sarah and Jubal work together to reinforce the house. He teaches her how to use a handgun, sets up makeshift barricades, and they take turns keeping watch. The news is grim. Seattle is in lockdown with military forces trying to keep the infected out. But Jubal knows it's too late. There are too many. At dusk, they hear banging at the door. It's the unmistakable sound of someone trying to get in. Zombies, and maybe worse. The weight of the reality they're in presses down on them. There's no escaping this nightmare, not now. They're stuck here, in this crumbling city, waiting for the inevitable. They brace themselves for what comes next, knowing that this is only the beginning. Day 6, fractured reality. The next morning arrives with no fanfare, just the muted hum of the city burning in the distance. The sun struggles to pierce through the gray clouds, casting the hills in a somber light. Jubal wakes with a groan, the exhaustion from the past 2 days settling into his bones. He doesn't feel like he slept, not really. The house is too quiet, too still. It's a constant reminder of how far the world has gone off the rails. Sarah is still asleep when he checks in on her. He watches her for a moment, her face pale, bruised, and drawn from the horrors she's witnessed. He's not sure how long she's been surviving on her own, how long she's been running from the infected, but he knows she won't last much longer out there without help. There's something broken in her eyes, a dullness that wasn't there the day she arrived. Jubal moves silently through the house, his movements calculated. He doesn't want to wake her yet. She needs rest, though he's not sure how much of it will matter. He spends the morning checking the perimeter again, reloading weapons and organizing their meager supplies. The calm is suffocating. He can hear the faint sound of zombies in the woods, groaning, dragging their feet across the earth. But they don't approach. Not yet. The radio crackles to life in the corner of the room. Jubal jumps, his heart pounding in his chest as he moves to switch it off. And as of last night, the National Guard is requesting immediate assistance in evacuating civilians from the affected zones. Reports from Capitol Hill indicate widespread violence. The virus has officially spread beyond the quarantine zones, and authorities are now advising. Jubal slams the radio off, his pulse still racing. He's never been one to panic, but something about the finality of that announcement gets to him. This isn't just a quarantine. Not anymore. It's a lockdown. The city is gone. Day 7, the hunt begins. By noon, Jubal can't ignore it any longer. They can't stay here forever. The house is fortified, but it's isolated. If they don't start moving soon, they'll become trapped by the very barricades meant to protect them. Jubal calls Sarah into the kitchen as he packs a bag with supplies. She watches him silently, her hands trembling slightly as she adjusts the knife she's kept with her since she arrived. She doesn't speak, doesn't ask what the plan is. She knows. "We need to find other survivors," Jubal says, his voice steady but tinged with a hint of something unspoken. "We can't do this alone." He grabs his hunting rifle and slings it over his shoulder. He's already wearing his jacket, a heavy-duty military-style thing that has seen better days but is still functional. It's heavy with the weight of supplies strapped to his back, the kind of pack a man hopes he'll never have to use. Sarah nods and grabs her own gear, a worn backpack and a pistol. She's been practicing with it since she arrived, but there's still uncertainty in her eyes. "Are you ready?" Jubal asks, though he already knows the answer. She nods again. The first step is to get down the hill and into the city. It's risky. The streets are crawling with infected, and they don't have the luxury of waiting for help. But Jubal knows this place. He's seen the way people move through the city, the paths they take, the places they avoid. He's learned how to survive in Seattle, and now he's going to teach Sarah how to do the same. The road ahead is littered with wrecked cars, abandoned vehicles left in haste by their owners. Jubal moves carefully, staying in the trees when possible and making his way along the back roads. Sarah is right behind him, her footsteps light but uncertain. They pass through Ballard and head toward downtown. The city is nothing like it used to be. The vibrant streets are now silent, save for the occasional groan or scream. The windows of businesses are shattered, storefronts ransacked, and in the alleyways the unmistakable sound of gnashing teeth echoes as the infected wander aimlessly. As they pass a dark alley, a figure stumbles out into the street, bloodied and torn. Its face is an awful, swollen mask of what it once was, a patchwork of flesh and bone held together by nothing more than hunger. It spots them almost immediately, its eyes dull but fixed on them with a disturbing focus. Jubal doesn't hesitate. He levels his rifle and takes the shot. The infected's head explodes in a sickening spray of blood and brain matter, the body crumpling to the ground. Sarah flinches but doesn't say anything. She's learning. They continue forward, moving silently through the city, avoiding the larger groups. Jubal keeps his eyes peeled for signs of life, but there's nothing, no survivors, no movement, just the hollow silence of a city slowly dying. Day 8, an unexpected encounter. By the time night falls, they've reached the heart of Capitol Hill, but they haven't found much. The city is a graveyard. Buildings are boarded up, and every block feels like it's been abandoned for years. Jubal takes Sarah to an old pawn shop he used to visit, hoping for supplies. The store's windows are cracked, and the door hangs loosely on its hinges, but it's still intact. Inside, it's dark, and the air is thick with the smell of decay. They move carefully through the aisles, checking shelves and drawers for anything useful. Jubal's flashlight catches on a pile of tools in the back corner, and he moves to inspect them. As he reaches down to grab a crowbar, a sudden noise from the front of the store stops him dead in his tracks. A low growl. His heart skips a beat, and he gestures for Sarah to stay quiet. They both turn toward the front of the store, and a shape moves slowly into view. It's another person, or at least it used to be. A man, pale and sickly, his clothes torn and stained with blood. His eyes are vacant, and his mouth hangs open, drooling as he lumbers toward them. Jubal raises his rifle, his breath steady. "Stay back," he hisses to Sarah, before turning his attention to the infected man. Before he can pull the trigger, Sarah steps forward, brandishing her pistol. Her hand shakes slightly, but her aim is true. She pulls the trigger, and the man's head jerks back, a spray of blood staining the floor as he collapses. "Nice shot," Jubal murmurs, though he doesn't look at her. His eyes are already scanning the darkened streets. There's something else out there. He can feel it. They grab what they can, some canned food, a few more rounds of ammo, a first aid kit, and head back toward the hill. Day 9, the calm before the storm. The journey back to the hills feels longer, as if the weight of the city's collapse is pressing down on them. Jubal and Sarah move quickly, but they're both exhausted, physically and mentally. When they finally make it back to the house, the sense of relief is short-lived. There's no safety anymore. The night is darker than it's ever been, and the only sounds are the distant moans of the infected and the crackling of flames somewhere down in the city. Jubal sets up watch for the night, but he can't shake the feeling that something's coming, something worse than what they've already seen. Day 10, breaking point. The morning comes, but it doesn't bring any comfort. The house feels like a tomb, the air thick with dread. Jubal hasn't slept, not really. He sits at the window, scanning the trees, his rifle resting on the floor beside him. Sarah sleeps fitfully on the couch, her nightmares reflecting the horrors they've both seen. But there's no time to rest. Not now. They're running out of supplies, and they both know it. Something is coming, something bigger than they've faced so far. Jubal is certain of it. Day 11. No place left to hide. The morning fog hangs thick over the hills, a gray, oppressive blanket that makes the world feel smaller, more claustrophobic. Jubal stares out the window, his rifle resting against the wall beside him. The city lies below, a distant memory now, reduced to nothing more than a burned-out wasteland. The rain, never ending, taps softly against the glass, a cruel reminder of how much time has passed. Sarah stirs on the couch, groaning as she shifts in her sleep. It's been nearly a week since they last ventured out, and both of them are running on fumes. The adrenaline that's kept them alive so far is starting to fade. They're tired, physically and emotionally drained. But there's no time for rest. The world isn't going to stop just because they're worn out. Jubal pushes himself off the chair, his legs stiff from the hours spent in constant vigilance. He checks the food stores in the kitchen, barely enough for another day. The canned goods are running low, and they're down to their last bottle of water. He knew this moment would come, but it's different when you're staring it in the face. "Sarah," he says, his voice low but firm, "we need to go out again. We can't keep hiding here. We're running out of options." She looks up, blinking as the fog of sleep lifts. "I know," she whispers, her eyes dull with exhaustion. "But I don't want to. The city it's worse than before." Jubal nods, understanding. Every trip into the city feels like stepping into the belly of the beast, but it's not like they have much of a choice anymore. The house they've fortified for the past week is becoming more of a prison. They need more supplies, and they need to find other survivors, if there's anyone left. The infected are getting closer. Jubal can feel it in his gut. The noise outside, the scraping of feet against gravel, the occasional growl, it's all getting louder. They've been able to keep them at bay for now, but how much longer can they hold on? "Get your gear," he says, his tone brokering no argument. Day 12, a city of ghosts. The trek back into the city is just as eerie as it was before. The streets are unnaturally quiet. The world feels abandoned, as though the apocalypse has swept everything away. They pass the usual landmarks, the Space Needle, its once proud silhouette now shrouded in smoke and ash, Pike Place Market, its famous sign hanging crooked and half-rusted, the open-air stalls empty, all goods looted or left to rot. Jubal's boots crunch on broken glass as he moves cautiously through the streets. Sarah follows closely behind, her pistol held low but ready. Her face is pale, her eyes wide with fear and something else, an edge of disbelief, as if the world they once knew is a distant memory. "Keep your head down," Jubal warns, his voice just above a whisper. "We don't know who or what might be out here." They stick to the alleyways and side streets, avoiding the open roads. The last thing they need is a confrontation with a group of infected, or worse, other survivors who might not be so friendly. The city is a battleground now, and trust is a currency that's become worthless. At one point, they pass by a building where they hear muffled voices inside. Jubal freezes, instinctively pulling Sarah back into the shadows. His heart beats faster. Could it be other survivors? The hope is fleeting, quickly overshadowed by caution. He gestures for Sarah to stay quiet, signaling that they should move on. But as they round the corner, Sarah grabs his arm. Her eyes are wide with terror, and her voice shakes as she whispers, "Jubal, look." A group of infected are scattered in front of them, not walking aimlessly, but crouched low, their mouths working as if they're hunting. Their heads turn, sniffing the air. Their eyes are glazed, but they can still sense movement. Jubal's grip tightens around his rifle. This wasn't just a random horde. It was a pack. "Stay still," he mutters, lowering his body to the ground, pulling Sarah into a crouch beside him. He breathes slowly, forcing himself to stay calm, He's been in tight situations before, but this feels different. The infected move closer, just a few feet away now, their grotesque forms shuffling and scraping the ground. The smell of decay fills the air, thick and rancid. Sarah's breath hitches, but she doesn't make a sound. Jubal takes slow, deliberate breaths, waiting. They're just a few moments away from being discovered, but if they stay perfectly still, maybe they can slip by unnoticed. He watches the infected's movements, each of them an unpredictable variable. Time seems to stretch out, the seconds feeling like hours. Finally, the group begins to wander off, disinterested in the quiet alley. Jubal lets out a breath he didn't realize he was holding. "That was too close," Sarah says, her voice barely audible. She's trembling, and Jubal can feel the tension in her body. "We're not safe here," he says, his eyes scanning the area. "We need to move, now." Day 13, the search for shelter. By the time night falls, Jubal and Sarah are deep in the heart of the city. They've passed through neighborhoods that were once vibrant with life, now just hollow echoes of what they used to be. The buildings are torn apart, looted, and ravaged by fire and time. They make their way to a supermarket they had scouted out before, the QFC in the Capitol Hill district. It's a risk, but the shelves inside are still stocked with food and supplies, though it's been picked over. The doors are barricaded, and it looks like it's been used as a temporary shelter at some point. But when they try to open the door, they find it locked. Jubal pounds on the glass, hoping for a response. No one answers, but he can feel eyes watching him from the darkened interior. They've been through this before. Locked doors, silent buildings, abandoned places filled with the ghosts of their former inhabitants. "Maybe we should move on," Sarah says, her voice tight. She looks over her shoulder nervously, and her hand tightens around her pistol. Jubal hesitates. He knows they need to keep moving, but something about this building calls to him. Maybe it's the last shred of hope he has left, but he's not ready to give up on it just yet. "Wait here," he says, moving around to the side of the building to see if there's another way in. He spots a small access door around the back, its lock already broken. With his heart racing, he slips inside, signaling Sarah to follow. The inside is a mess. Food has been strewn about, boxes are torn open, and there's a layer of dust over everything. It smells stale, a mixture of mildew and rot, but at least there's no sign of recent activity. They start searching for supplies, gathering what they can, canned goods, water bottles, medical kits. But as they move deeper into the store, a low growl cuts through the silence. Jubal's blood runs cold. He spins around just in time to see one of the infected stagger out from the back of the store, its face a grotesque mess of flesh and blood. And then there's another. Jubal's rifle is in his hands in an instant, but before he can fire, there's a scream from the back. Sarah, day 14, blood on the floor. The gunshots echo through the store, but the infected keep coming. Sarah screams again. She's cornered. Jubal doesn't think. He rushes toward the sound, ducking under shelves and leaping over obstacles. His heart pounds in his chest as he hears the unmistakable sound of Sarah's struggle. She's fighting, but she's overwhelmed. One of the infected is on top of her, its putrid mouth opening wide, ready to take a bite. Jubal fires his rifle twice, taking down two of the infected, but it's too late. The damage is done. Sarah's leg is bleeding, and she's struggling to keep the creature off her. With one final surge of strength, Jubal rushes forward, shoving the infected off of her and slamming it against the nearby shelf. He shoots it in the head, but the damage is already done. Sarah is hurt. He pulls her to her feet, but she winces in pain. Blood pours from the gash on her leg, and her face is pale. We need to leave, now. Day 15. The road ahead. Jubal doesn't look back as they exit the store. The entire city feels like it's closing in around them, its streets filled with the dead, and with each step they take, it becomes harder to ignore the reality of their situation. They're running out of time, running out of hope, and the infected are closing in. Day 16. The weight of survival. The pain in Sarah's leg is a constant reminder of how fragile their existence has become. She insists on walking, but Jubal can see the strain in her every step. Her face is pale, her breath shallow. The blood from the wound has slowed, but it's not enough. There's no telling if the infection has taken hold, and the fear gnaws at Jubal with each passing hour. They've left the Capitol Hill district behind. The the streets a twisted wreck of looted stores and empty vehicles. Their journey has turned into a dangerous game of cat and mouse, with every alley and corner hiding threats they can't afford to underestimate. Jubal doesn't let his guard down for a second. He checks their surroundings constantly, his rifle held close, his eyes darting between the shadows and the street ahead. Seattle's streets are no longer familiar, no longer the city he once called home. They're just a labyrinth of decay, with danger lurking at every turn. "We need to find shelter," Jubal says, his voice low but firm as he scans the buildings around them. "Somewhere we can hold up for a while. You're not in good shape." Sarah doesn't argue, though her lips curl into a tight smile. "I can keep going. You're not getting rid of me that easily." Her attempt at humor is weak, but it's all she has left. They've both lost so much in such a short time. The world they once knew is gone. The city is a ghost town, and every day is another battle to survive. Jubal looks down at her, his jaw set. "We don't have time for heroics. If you keep pushing yourself, you'll collapse." Sarah shrugs, her eyes clouded with exhaustion. What's the point of surviving if we don't keep moving forward? Jubal doesn't have an answer. They're in this together now, whether they like it or not, and every choice they make could be their last. Day 17, the wounds of the past. By late afternoon, they find a dilapidated church on the outskirts of the downtown area. It's a towering structure, its steeple broken and weathered, the stained glass windows shattered. But it offers shelter, and for now, that's all that matters. Jubal helps Sarah inside, his eyes darting around to check for any signs of movement. The silence in the church is deafening, the air thick with dust and decay. The pews are overturned, and the altar is nothing more than a pile of splintered wood. There's no sign of life inside, no indication that anyone else has been here for weeks, maybe months. "Think it's safe?" Sarah asks, her voice strained as she lowers herself onto one of the remaining pews. "I don't know," Jubal admits, keeping his eyes fixed on the door. "But it's the best we've got right now." He checks the windows, making sure they're boarded up as securely as possible. They'll need to stay here for the night. He can't risk going back out with Sarah in her condition. They need rest, desperately. Jubal rummages through his pack, pulling out a few cans of food and water. The reality of their situation is starting to weigh on him, and it's getting harder to ignore the mounting pressure. They're running out of options. They're running out of time. "What happens when we can't find any more supplies?" Sarah asks, her voice barely above a whisper as she watches him prepare the meal. He freezes, the question cutting through him like a knife. He hadn't voiced that fear, hadn't let himself consider it. But now that it's out in the open, it's all he can think about. "We'll find more," he says, forcing the words past his clenched teeth. "We have to." She doesn't respond, and the silence between them feels heavier than the broken church around them. Day 18, the echoes of humanity. That night, they take turns on watch. Jubal sits near the back of the church, his rifle close at hand, his senses on high alert. He hears nothing. No distant moans, no footfalls, no sounds of life at all. It's a hollow quiet, the kind that comes when a city has been abandoned to rot. But that silence is broken around midnight. A distant scream echoes through the city, a high-pitched, frantic cry that sends a chill down Jubal's spine. He stiffens, straining to hear more. The sound cuts off abruptly, replaced by the unmistakable shuffle of feet, too many feet. Sarah stirs next to him, her eyes wide. "What is it?" "Zombies," Jubal says, his voice barely a whisper. "We need to stay still. Quiet." The moaning grows louder, the shuffle of infected feet echoing in the distance. They're close. The group of infected is heading their way. Jubal listens, his heart hammering in his chest. There's no time to move. They'll have to wait it out, pray that the infected pass by without noticing them. The sound grows louder, and Jubal's mind races. What if they don't pass by? What if they come straight for the church? He grips his rifle tighter, his knuckles turning white, his jaw clenched. The infected outside stop suddenly, and the world seems to hold its breath. For a moment, there's nothing, just the heavy, oppressive silence of the church. Then, slowly, a shadow moves past one of the broken windows. Jubal's eyes narrow. He gestures for Sarah to stay down. The infected are outside. They're close, too close. For what feels like hours, they stay hidden, barely breathing, praying that the infected will leave. The The moaning and shuffling continue, but they seem to drift farther away. Finally, after what feels like an eternity, the noise fades into the distance and the silence returns. Jubal exhales slowly, wiping sweat from his brow. We're lucky. Too lucky. Day 19, the road less traveled. The next morning, they pack up their things and leave the church behind. There's no point in staying. More infected will find their way here eventually. They need to keep moving. Sarah's leg is worse. The bleeding has started again, and it's clear that the infection is spreading. The redness around the wound has grown darker, and her fever is rising. Jubal's stomach tightens at the sight. He knows what it means, but he refuses to say it aloud. "Sarah, we need to get you help," he says, his voice tight with urgency. "There's a clinic not far from here, near the old hospital. We can make it there. It's the only chance you've got." Sarah nods, but there's something hollow in her eyes. She knows the truth as well as he does. She's not going to make it much longer if they don't get her the right medicine. But the chances of finding something in this broken city are slim. Jubal helps her onto her feet, gritting his teeth as they move forward. The city is an open wound, the streets a battleground between the living and the dead. Every step is a risk, every corner an unknown. But they have no choice. They have to keep moving, or they'll both die here. Day 20. A flicker of hope. By the time they reach the old clinic, it's late in the afternoon. The sun is hidden behind a thick layer of clouds, casting the world in shades of gray. The streets are empty, and the city feels like a tomb. The clinic is old, its windows broken, and its door hanging on its hinges. But there's a chance, a slim one, that they might find something inside. Jubal pushes open the door, and the smell of decay hits them immediately. The waiting area is empty, the chairs overturned, the walls marked with signs of neglect. The building has been abandoned for weeks, maybe months. They search through the clinic, moving quickly. Jubal checks cabinets, drawers, and shelves, desperate for anything that might help Sarah. His hands shake as he rifles through medical supplies, finding nothing but expired medications and broken equipment. Then, just as he's about to give up, he finds it, a small box of antibiotics, hidden away in a corner. His heart skips a beat. It's not much, but it's the best they can do. He rushes back to Sarah, who's sitting on the floor, her face pale and clammy. "I found something," he says, his voice hoarse with relief. He opens the box, carefully taking out the pills. There's a faint glimmer of hope in his chest. Maybe, just maybe, this will save her. Day 21. Desperate measures. The small box of antibiotics sits in Jubal's hand like the last scrap of hope in a broken world. He holds it as if it's fragile, as if it might disappear in a puff of smoke if he's not careful. His hands shake slightly, and he feels the weight of it, his last chance to save Sarah. He approaches her carefully, his heart pounding in his chest. She's sitting against the wall of the clinic, her head tipped back, her breath shallow, her skin pale. The fever has taken hold of her. She barely responds when he speaks her name. "Sarah," he says softly, kneeling beside her. "I found some antibiotics. It's not much, but we've got to try." She blinks, her eyes focusing on him for a moment before she gives a faint nod, the corners of her lips twitching into a semblance of a smile. It's weak, barely there, but it's enough to keep Jubal from losing himself in the suffocating dread that has been gnawing at him for days. He opens the box carefully, pulling out a few pills and water from his pack. "This should help," he mutters, though even he isn't sure. The world is unraveling, and the medicine seems like such a small thing in the grand scheme of it all. But it's all they have. It's all they can do. As he helps her take the pills, Sarah's eyes meet his, full of a weariness he's never seen before. It's more than just exhaustion. It's resignation, as if she's already made peace with the inevitable. "It's okay," she whispers. "You've done everything you could." Jubal clenches his jaw, forcing back the lump in his throat. "No," he says, his voice hoarse. "Not yet. Not until we have something else to try." But deep down he knows. He's running out of options. They're running out of time. Day 22. The path to nowhere. The clinic, despite its decaying walls and silence, is the safest place they've been in days. But safety is a fleeting illusion. They both know that. The infected are always close, always waiting for the next unlucky soul to wander too far. Jubal moves cautiously, eyes flicking between the streets outside and the clinic's narrow hallways, as though expecting a swarm to appear at any moment. Sarah has passed out, the fever taking its toll on her body. She's barely conscious, her body burning with the heat of the infection. Every now and then, she murmurs in her sleep, her words unintelligible, lost to the fever that rages inside her. Jubal watches her for a long time, his heart heavy in his chest. He can't do this alone. He can't carry the weight of their survival on his own shoulders, not without her. But he can't let her go either, not without a fight. Forcing himself to move, Jubal picks up his rifle and steps outside the clinic. The street is quiet, too quiet. He knows the infected are close, but there's no sign of them, no moaning, no shuffling feet. It's a rare moment of peace, one he knows won't last. He checks the street, his senses alert, before he moves further into the city. He's looking for something, anything, that can give them a chance. Medical supplies, food, ammunition, anything to extend their chances. As he walks through the empty streets, a familiar weight settles on his chest, a feeling that he's being watched, hunted. But there's no time to dwell on it. He has to keep moving. He needs to find something. Day 23, into the dark. By evening, Jubal has made little progress. The city is a labyrinth of abandoned streets, shattered glass, and broken storefronts. Every corner feels like it could be the last. The city feels like a trap, an open graveyard with no escape. He's found more supplies, but nothing that will make a significant difference. He's collected a few cans of food, some more water, and a couple of boxes of ammo, but it's not enough. They need more. They need a miracle. When he returns to the clinic, Sarah's condition has worsened. She's unconscious, her skin clammy, her breathing shallow and ragged. The fever is still burning through her body, and it's clear that the antibiotics haven't made a difference. Jubal kneels beside her, his fingers trembling as he checks her pulse. It's faint, too faint. He presses his lips together in frustration, fighting the rising panic that threatens to overtake him. He can't lose her. Not now. Not after everything they've been through. But the truth is clear. There's no cure. Not here. Not in this world. The weight of it crashes over him like a tidal wave. He stands up abruptly, his legs unsteady. He grabs his rifle, slamming the stock against the wall in a burst of anger. The noise echoes through the empty building, but no one answers. Jubal slumps back to the floor, his hands shaking, his chest tight with the weight of it all. He feels the crushing pressure of his own fear, but he pushes it down. He's not done yet. He's not ready to let go. Day 24. A flicker of hope. The morning light is weak, the sky a dull gray. Jubal watches Sarah as she stirs, her eyes fluttering open. For a moment, he thinks she might not recognize him, but then she focuses on his face, her gaze clearing slightly. Jubal, she whispers, her voice barely audible. Is it? He shakes his head, his throat tight. You're still here. She gives him a weak smile, though it's laced with pain. I'm sorry, Don't apologize, he interrupts quickly. We'll get through this. But even as he says it, he knows the truth. He knows the odds are slim. The infection is too far gone, and there's nothing he can do to stop it. They both know it, but they don't say it out loud. Not yet. A knock on the clinic's door breaks the silence. Jubal freezes, his pulse spiking. His hand instinctively grips his rifle. His heart races as the door creaks open, the sound like a death knell in the stillness of the clinic. For a moment, there's nothing. Then a voice that sounds both familiar and strange in the current world. Hello? Is anyone here? Jubal's grip on the rifle tightens. He approaches the door cautiously, peeking through a crack in the wood. He sees a figure standing in the dim light, their outline distorted by the shadows. The person is wearing a mask, a thick black hood, and a makeshift armor of scrap metal and clothing. Who's there? Jubal calls out, his voice steady but with a hint of suspicion. I'm not here to hurt you, the figure says. I'm just trying to survive, same as you. Jubal hesitates, his mind racing. Is this a trap? Another band of scavengers looking for an easy kill? The person doesn't move, their hands raised in a gesture of peace. I've been watching you, the figure continues. You're alone, and you're running out of time. I can help. Jubal steps back, his mind reeling. The offer is tempting, but there's something about this person that feels wrong. Too convenient. Still, they don't have much of a choice. He needs help. They both do. Who are you? Jubal asks, his voice low. The figure steps forward, just enough for the light to reveal their face. just enough to make Jubal's blood run cold. The person is wearing a mask, but their eyes are too familiar. The cold, calculating gaze belongs to someone he's seen before. Day 25, the final choice. The figure steps forward fully, revealing their face. A face Jubal recognizes, but barely. It's Alex, a former military contractor who had been stationed with him years ago, before the world fell apart. "Alex?" Jubal says, his voice trembling despite himself. "What the hell are you doing here?" Alex's eyes flicker with recognition, but there's no warmth in them. "I was hoping I wouldn't have to explain," Alex says with a cold smile. "But I guess we don't have time for pleasantries." Jubal's mind is spinning. "What do you want from us?" "I can help you," Alex says. "I've got a place, a safe house, supplies, protection, everything you need, but you need to trust me." Jubal feels the weight of the choice bearing down on him. The clinic is no longer safe. The infected are getting closer. And Sarah's time is running out. But can he trust Alex? Can he trust anyone anymore? Day 26, the stranger's offer. Jubal's hand still grips the rifle, but his eyes remain locked on Alex. His mind races, trying to make sense of the situation. How had Alex found him? More importantly, why was he here now, offering help when the world had long since collapsed into chaos? Alex's face, once familiar, now seems cold, hard, distant. The same man who used to share a drink after a hard day of work. The same man who laughed at his own jokes now stands in front of him as a stranger, a product of a world gone mad. "I can help you," Alex repeats, his voice calm, but there's an edge to it. "I'm not here to hurt you." Jubal's heart pounds. His mind is a battleground. They're running out of time. Sarah's fever is only getting worse, and they can't stay in the clinic forever. But trusting Alex? After all this time? The questions flood in, but no answers come. "I don't trust you," Jubal says, his voice quiet but firm, his eyes never leaving Alex. Alex's smile fades, but his posture remains relaxed. He doesn't seem offended, just patient. "I get it, but think about it. This city's a death trap. The infected are everywhere. You won't survive out here alone. I have a place where you can get clean, eat, and get back on your feet." Jubal's thoughts are racing. Could this be their way out? Could Alex's offer be real? Or is it just another trap, a desperate ploy to draw them into a situation they can't escape? He glances over at Sarah, still lying unconscious on the floor, her breath shallow, the heat from her fever radiating from her skin. His chest tightens at the sight. He can't let her die. Not like this, not because of some selfish hesitation. "Tell me what you want in return," Jubal says, trying to keep his voice steady. He knows the answer will come with a price. It always does. Alex steps closer, his gaze flicking from Jubal to Sarah. He doesn't seem surprised by the condition she's in. Instead, he looks at her almost clinically. "I'll help you get her there. I'll give you the supplies you need," Alex says. "In return, I just need your trust and a little bit of your time." Jubal's grip tightens on his rifle. "Time for what?" Alex takes a deep breath, then looks directly at him. "I need you to help me with something. A job. It's not much, but it's necessary. It's part of the deal." The silence stretches between them, heavy with unspoken implications. Jubal doesn't like this. He doesn't like the way Alex is talking, like he's in control, like everything is already decided. But what choice does he have? Sarah is slipping away, and without help, she won't make it another day. He stares at Alex, weighing the situation. The clinic is no longer an option. The infected will find it eventually. And he can't stay here forever. "All right," Jubal says at last, his voice low but determined. "We go with you. But if this is a trick, I'll kill you myself." Alex's expression remains unchanged. "Fair enough. Follow me." Day 27, the road to safety. Jubal's mind doesn't quiet as they leave the clinic behind. Sarah, barely conscious, is carried between them, her body limp in their arms. Her fever has gotten worse, and her breathing sounds labored. Jubal's heart pounds with each step, each breath he takes, knowing that time is slipping through his fingers. Alex leads them through the streets, moving with purpose, his eyes scanning the area constantly. His every movement is controlled, deliberate. It's as though he's been living in this broken world for far longer than Jubal has. There's a cold efficiency to him that makes Jubal uneasy. But right now, that coldness might be exactly what they need. They move through the downtown area, weaving through abandoned vehicles and collapsed buildings. The city is eerily quiet. The distant sound of moans can be heard, but the infected seem to be keeping their distance. For now. The sun is setting when they finally reach an old warehouse on the outskirts of the city. It's surrounded by a tall chain-link fence, the kind that's seen better days, but it's sturdy enough to keep the infected out. And that's all that matters. "This is it," Alex says as he pushes open a gate, motioning for Jubal to follow. The inside of the warehouse is surprisingly well organized. There are shelves stocked with food, first aid supplies, and makeshift beds set up along the walls. A few people move around the area, but they don't seem to be the type of survivors Jubal is used to. There's no panic, no desperation in their movements. They seem prepared. "I've got the resources you need," Alex says, nodding toward the supplies. "Get Sarah settled. We'll take care of her." Jubal looks around, his heart still racing, but he can't deny the relief that floods through him. This place, this small island of order in the midst of chaos, might be their chance to survive. For a brief moment, he lets his guard down, just enough to breathe. He moves toward one of the beds, gently laying Sarah down. She stirs slightly, her eyes fluttering open as she looks at him. "Jubal, where are we?" "We're safe," he whispers, brushing a strand of hair from her face. "We're going to be okay." But even as he says it, he's not so sure. He's always been a realist, and this place, it doesn't feel like a sanctuary. It feels like another trap, another illusion of safety that could collapse at any moment. Day 28, Uneasy Alliances. The next day, Alex brings Jubal into a small office at the back of the warehouse. It's bare, except for a rickety desk and a few old chairs. There's no sign of anyone else, which only increases Jubal's suspicion. Alex motions for him to sit. "We've got work to do." Jubal takes a seat, still wary. "You're going to tell me what this is about now, right?" Alex sits across from him, his posture relaxed. "It's simple," he says, folding his arms. "I need your help with a supply run, a dangerous one, and in return, I'll make sure Sarah gets the medical attention she needs." Jubal clenches his fists, resisting the urge to lash out. "You're asking me to risk my life for you?" Alex's gaze hardens, but his tone stays calm. "You're already risking your life every day. You're in no position to turn this down." Jubal's stomach twists with anger and frustration. He doesn't like the way Alex is talking, like he's the one calling the shots. But he knows he doesn't have much of a choice. He needs supplies. He needs hope. And right now, Alex's offer is the only thing standing between them and certain death. "Fine," Jubal says, his voice low. "What's the plan?" Alex leans forward, his eyes locking onto Jubal's. "There's a convoy in the old docks. It's supposed to be bringing in a load of medical supplies. We're going to take it." Jubal's gut churns. "And what makes you think we can get it?" "The convoy's been compromised," Alex replies coolly. "We'll be dealing with bandits. It's going to be messy, but if we act fast, we can get the supplies we need." Jubal stares at him for a long moment. "And what about you? What do you need from me?" Alex smirks, a hint of something dark in his eyes. "I just need you to pull your weight. We get in, we get out. Simple." Jubal hesitates. There's something about the whole thing that doesn't sit right with him, but his options are limited. He can't sit here and wait for the world to come to them, not with Sarah's life hanging in the balance. "All right," Jubal says, nodding. "Let's do it." Day 29, the deal's cost. The convoy at the docks is exactly as Alex described, compromised, abandoned by its original crew, and now taken over by a group of ruthless scavengers. The scene is chaotic, with scavengers rifling through crates, arguing over what's left. Jubal stays in the shadows, his rifle ready, his heart pounding in his chest. This isn't what he signed up for, but he has no choice. Sarah's life depends on what they can get from here. They move quickly, silently, picking off the bandits one by one. The air is thick with tension, the silence broken only by the occasional muffled shout or the crack of a rifle shot. Jubal and Alex work like a well-oiled machine, but even as they secure the supplies they need, Jubal can't shake the feeling that he's being played. As they head back to the warehouse, laden with crates of medicine and food, Alex turns to him with a sly smile. "See, told you we'd make it out." Jubal doesn't smile back. "Yeah, but at what cost?" Day 30, the last choice. They return to the warehouse, their haul more than enough to keep them alive for a while. But the sense of unease only grows. Jubal knows the truth now. There's no safe place. There's no peace in this broken world. He watches Alex, who seems to have an endless supply of answers, an endless stream of plans. But Jubal isn't fooled anymore. He's seen enough to know that this man, this stranger who once was a friend, is not someone he can trust. When the sun sets, Jubal finds himself standing by Sarah's bedside, her breathing steady for now. He doesn't know what tomorrow will bring, but he knows he has to make a choice. Does he trust Alex, or does he make his own way, with what little time he has left, and will it even matter in the end?